Welcome to the Three Queens Show. My name is Nkumbu, the one and only Sun Queen, and I will be your host tonight.
Do I need to use this? Okay, cool. But you can all hear me, right? I'd like to formally welcome all of you to the second Color Culture's Three Queens Show. Now, at this point in time, I would like to welcome the Alliance Francais Vice President for some opening remarks. A round of applause, please.
Hello? It's okay. Yes, thank you. Good evening. It's an honor to welcome you today for celebrating the Women's Day. For more than a century, people around the world have been marking 8 March as a special day for women. Do you know that everything started in 1908 in New York, when 15,000 women marched through the city, demanding shorter working hours, better pay, and the right to vote. The idea to make the day international came 2 years later in the International Women of Working Men and Women in Copenhagen. Why the 8th March? The date wasn't formalized until a wartime strike in 1917 when Russian women demanded bread and peace. And 4 days into the women's strike, the Tsar was forced to abdicate, and the provisional government granted women the right to vote. That day was the 8th March. So the Women's Day finds its root in the women's fight for their right. This day celebrates the social, economic, cultural, and political achievement of women. That's why on the 8th of March, I don't want, as a woman, to be celebrated with flowers, or a new dress, or an invitation in a restaurant. I just would like more equality for women all around the world. I would like an equal salary for men and women. I would like more men sharing the house chores. I would like less violence. I would like more power for my sisters. This year's commemoration is under the international theme, Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID-19 World. Our today event is created in partnership with Color Culture and the Women's History Museum, and will be available online for all in a couple of days. Enjoy that moment of poetry and music, and let yourself be carried away by 3 amazing women who showed us they can be leading ladies. Let us celebrate the Women's Right Day and not the Women's Day.
Let us celebrate each other because we are great, we are powerful, and we're incredible. And tonight we're telling stories of women that risked everything to give us this moment right now. They fought for our freedom. And I just really, first of all, would like to appreciate Musanga because he's such a genius, He's such an incredible genius, and he's given us this platform to experience this beautiful memory. And so, yeah, let us have fun. So for the next queen, our first queen that we're representing today that we're celebrating, listen to this.
Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to introduce you to 3 extraordinary women, Alice Mulenga Lenshina, Namwezi Mwamba, and Malina Kajila Chillala Makhubalo, who have etched their names in history and have thus earned their right to be known as our 3 queens. From disruptive religious leaders to young freedom fighters to women of influence speaking up for their rights, these women have shown us just what it means to shake the foundations of cultural norms and rise above them. Tonight we unravel their stories and reveal to you all the adventures and pursuits that make these women remarkable. Our story begins with Mulenga Lenshina, who at one point in her life became very ill with cerebral malaria in 1953 and fell into a coma. Now, upon regaining consciousness, she told people that during her coma, she met a divine presence. Some say Jesus Christ himself, who gave her the task of spreading a special message of love. She went on to spread this message, and gradually, her teachings evolved into an independent church called the Lumpa Church in 1955. Now, underpinning her message was the fight for the return of the leadership role of women in religious life, in a world where they were relegated to mere recipients to religious communion. The Lumpa Church was so successful that by the late 1950s, it may have had over 150,000 members in the northern and eastern provinces of northern Rhodesia and was rapidly emptying out the pews of mainstream churches. Through all this, Lenshina earned the enmity of two powerful forces, the government and the mainstream churches. Now, around this time in our nation, conflict rose between the Kaunda-led political party known as the United National Independence Party and Lenshina's Lumpa Church, and it reached its climax. On the 24th of July in 1964, a gun battle broke out between the United National Independence Party and the Lumpa Church members. That resulted in riots that were only held by the intervention of state troops and the proclamation of a state of emergency by the new pre-independence Prime Minister Kenneth Kaunda. On the 3rd of August 1964, the Lumpa Church was banned and Lenshina surrendered herself to police a few days later. She never faced trial but was detained for 11 years by the government. In May of 1970, the government ordered the destruction of her beautiful Kamutola church in her home village before she was released from detention in December of 1975. Lenshina is said to have regretted the fact that the political actions of the Lumpa Church weakened the spiritual impact of her message, which was about love, the poor, and the position of women in the religious life of the society. On the 7th of December 1978, Lenshina died while under house arrest and was eventually buried at Kasomo village where the Kamutola Church stood. To tell us a little bit more about this story, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome to the stage Kasungo and Gumbo.
Suppression, oppression, and I were once a group of best friends. Suppression, oppression, and I were once a group of best friends, oh yes. I mean, when people are moved into the same space, forced to eat at the same table, and made to share the same bed, the inevitability is that a friendship is bound to happen. For so long, we were never apart from the part of each other's lives, which was the suffering we endured together. I spent my days running from a tiny box they tried to fit me into. Trapped into a system systematically set in place to lower my status, but forget that because now I break the status quo. Heck, I wreck it, I shatter it into a million itty bits and pieces, my whole life's been a race. So sprint is all I embrace, because all I want to do is finally grip freedom in my palms as I keep my hands tightly clenched. So when that hunger is finally quenched, when I taste that sweetness, my goodness, I do not let go. They diminished my power. I spoke my knowledge and ideas. They dared ignore my intellect because apparently I did not meet the preferable prerequisite, that which was a penis. So now, you know I am woman. When my melanin sun-kissed skin was deemed too dark, it wasn't enough when they robbed my continent, yet still had the audacity to deem it poor. Took my gold and my copper to build their bridges and empires, yet still looked down on my land. You know I am African. When my country gains independence from the shackles and chains of colonialism in 1964, and I danced in celebration with my Bemba tribe, you know I am Zambian. I was born in 1920. From my mother's womb, I burst. A child of greatness was birthed. See, my mother told me there was something unique about me. Told me I lit a dark room so bright that its walls were blinded by my soul, that my giggle could make a room filled with people in mourning smile and remind them that we must celebrate life. My religion surrounded me with a multitude of women who taught me to be confident in my beliefs, speak the truth from my soul, and let my spirit lead. Indeed, I am a product of a community that taught me that woman is not written in Braille because you do not need to touch her to know her. You will know woman by her actions, by the fruits of her work. So raised by great women, I had no choice but to recognize that I too would one day become a great queen. I too would lead, one day bleed for my people. I grew up seeing my people in unity and love, taught me that great things can only be achieved when we work together, showed me the tools I would one day use as I step into my purpose. Trod this earth and shake it with my being, allow the power in my veins to be pumped throughout my community, because that is where my heart is, my home, my people. My whole life I've known to be a beacon of strength, but life's made it pretty evident that my plans are not always God's plans. After all, our lives are in God's hands. Sometimes we're weak and we fall. Sometimes we're fragile, but that does not mean we do not answer to God's call. So when I tell you I was meant to start great things, oh, I meant it. Meant that God gave me a task, so of course I was gonna rise, lead a movement of love, eat, sleep, and breathe in what I was called to do, divine revelation from above. In a deep slumber, I was made aware of my purpose. Came to me so crystal clear, it made clear glass look stained. When I tell you God's power precedes all human understanding, know that I testify. I was a woman on what I thought would be my deathbed, and in that weakness was when light and love was spoken upon me. For when we are weak is when God's power is the strongest. So for the longest I have known that I am a Zambian African woman purposed to spread love. So I start a church because I am nothing if not walking in the path that God has set before me. Watch this space and let me show you that there is no force equal to a woman determined to rise, win the prize not for her story, but for God's glory.
Thank you. I believe in the women I see reflected in the mirror before me. Those before me that held on to power and savored it. The generations after me yet to pass it on to their children and to their children's children and to their children's children's children. I am here to help build a society, one which recognizes women as they're supposed to be the paragon of what happens when you believe that the words you speak are as powerful as those that cause the earth to be, and to be beyond what this male-dominated world has positioned thee. See, I bear the key to freedom. Every woman does. It is the space in our bodies that only a fetus can fill. It is being pregnant with a child predestined to be a voice of hope, and who better than a woman to raise it? Unfortunately, there are those living in a bondage invincible to male personages, shut up by ignorance and lack of self-confidence, surrounded by walls painted chivalry, bound to degradation and sentenced to a life at the back of the pews, always cleaning up after masses and holding the holy scriptures only when dusting its sitting place, picking up after children's messes. You are more than a breastfeeding distraction. And I apologize on behalf of everyone that has ever claimed that that is all you could ever amount to. See, here at Zion, I lead an ardent tribe, one that loves to see you respected and treated like you were molded from the same clay and by the same hands. But the men in power deem it sinister that I choose to honor your existence. They consider it an abomination, an act of treason, a plot to lure you to truth, resulting in rebellion against them because you now know what you deserve. To be the one wife to one man because you are enough to sustain a marriage, to birth and to train children, to lead a congregation, and also to serve freely the God you believe in. See, I am not blind to the anti-government stands that Lumpa members hold, and every morning at the cock's crow, I expect a report of chaos, but violence is not the main thrust of this here movement. It is not why I started preaching, and it irks me, but it doesn't surprise me that they choose to focus on what makes their egos bleed.
Submerge yourself in purpose and watch yourself finally begin to live. Drown your imperfections and impurities and allow your lungs to be filled with the plans of the Father. The thing is, most trod this earth with no guidance because they closed their ears to the call of God, too scared to take on the suffering that comes with that righteous call. God told me to preach love, spoke to me from his home above, armed me with his armor and told me, you, my daughter, will honor me. Be my disciple. You now have my courage, my strength, my fight. So when the bullets of trials and tribulations try to gun me down, I fight. When I dwell in the deepest, darkest, daunting valley, I fight. When I reign on the highest mountaintop that tops the highest top, I fight. I keep my beliefs in sight. I keep them alive in this road of never-ending challenge because to me, that is what's right. Pure love is shown through its actions, so of course I run to the battle, ready to lead and bleed because I chose surrender when God told me. Because I chose surrender when God told me, gave me the strength to do all things. So when I fight with the strength of God. I fight with the strength of God because God gave me the strength to do all things, to spread love and to build this church. So when the bullets of trials and tribulations try to gun me down, I fight. When I dwell in the deepest, darkest, daunting valley, I fight. When I reign on the highest mountaintop that tops the highest top, I fight. I keep my beliefs in sight, keep them alive in this road of never-ending challenge because to me, that's what's right. They tried to fight my people. They tried to fight my people, tried to break my church, tried to break this empire God has told me to construct. So do not be mistaken. I am unshaken. I, a Zambian woman, built this church of love, so do not be mistaken. I have met war before, had doors slammed in my face before, argued with people so close-minded you'd think you were arguing with walls. So I am unafraid and unashamed to brave the wave of the enemy. So when the bullets of trials and tribulations try to gun me down, I fight. When I dwell in the deepest, darkest, daunting valley, I fight. When I reign on the highest mountaintop that tops the highest top, I fight. I keep my beliefs in sight. I keep them alive in this road of never-ending challenge because to me, that is what's right. I fight to death, I fight.
The sun arose the same way it did every day that day. And for the first time in a long time, my slumber wasn't interrupted by war cries or battle songs, bullets piercing through the air or wailing from yet another loss. The night had surrendered itself to me, but sleep evaded my eyes and I spent the time drowning in questions whose answers I could not fathom. Trying to calculate how we became tempestuous, an insurrection, a known threat to mainstream churches, and I didn't intend it to be so, but maybe, just maybe, it is not too late for reparations. You must know that I am not one to entertain bondage, but these handcuffs do not seem to be as uncomfortable. I trail through blood-tainted sands to hand over my freedom, for it is time. Kaunda, peering at a distance at this once non-pareil patriarch, my flock witnessing their shepherd amble to the slaughter. Is this the grand finale? Me in chains joined by my husband, the man that stood through my reign and didn't drown. Two of my children constrained by relation to me. Is this the tale the world will hear? The fall of a woman ignorant enough to stand against a colonial regime, leading an assemblage of wayward individuals. October 1960. We are moved to Kalabo district, and in a brink from despair one summer night, we attempt to escape but are caught and hauled back to the penitentiary for 6 more months. And in my detention, I hear of the destruction of my beautiful Kamutola church. As if that wasn't enough, I hear of the death of my husband. Who would have thought that I, Lenshina, a voice for many whose voice had been stripped away, would one day lose her own? I hope when you hear my name, you recognize that I fought and I taught. I stood for what I believed in, and with it, I fell. I pray that I gave enough hope to young girls to understand that they can be whoever they need to be, even in the midst of commotion. And if it is so, then I fulfilled my purpose. Thank you.
Let us give this phenomenal woman another round of applause. That was beautiful. So the next queen was celebrating, had me baffled. She was only 18 when she became a freedom fighter, and this is her story.
The second queen we're celebrating tonight is Queen Namwezi. Now, after a repeated resistance from the British government to grant independence to the majority of the African population, one of the major political parties of that time was the United National Independence Party, led by Kenneth Kaunda. In their valiant effort to fight for freedom, they came up with the famous Cha-Cha-Cha campaign of civil disobedience and political awareness. The United National Independence Party established and coordinated the Cha-Cha-Cha uprising committees on the Copperbelt, Northern, Luapula, and Eastern provinces, and in 1961, the campaign of civil disobedience was launched. One trusted operative in these acts of sabotage and protests in the Northern province was an 18-year-old Namwezi Mwamba. She became the mastermind behind the Cha-Cha-Cha movement in Mbala and Mpulungu, organizing civil disobedience in the area against the British government. Her sabotage attacks were so successful that the colonial police thought she was a man, and she was placed on the Northern Rhodesia Police Most Wanted list as a male saboteur. Taking advantage of this lapse in police intelligence, Namwezi easily escaped from police traps and ambushes. However, one day in 1961, Namwezi was betrayed by one of her party members, who revealed to the police that she was female and informed them of her plan to burn down a colonial government school. When Namwezi and other operatives arrived at the school, the informer pointed her out to police. Now, as she was registered as dangerous and a wanted criminal, the police shot and killed her on sight. The Zambia Independence Act was passed by the British Parliament on the 24th of October 1964, but Namwezi did not live to see her country gain the independence she fought for. After independence, a road in Mbala was named after her to honor her memory and her contribution to the struggle. Some of the people who worked with her during the Cha-Cha-Cha campaign and are still living always talk of her courageous and charismatic leadership. Representing Namwezi, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome to the stage Abigail and Keisha.
It was like beating my head against a brick wall to the tune of ballroom music. Bullets kept the beat to black bodies screaming the melody. It was a disgusting harmony. A bang, bang, bang of skull against red, white, and blue. Who knew ideals could hurt so badly? When sadly, our brothers, fathers, and uncles are used as teaching tools on how red the soil can become when one does not listen. It was a crescendo of oppression, a zenith on how blue black bodies can become when you beat them hard enough. A ballistics show of there is no you in independence, black child. Only I, sometimes we, but you keep the dependence, black child. Your people don't need to be free. And I was 18, invincible, scared, a cocky, courageous coward, and by that I mean I was smart enough to know when to keep my head down. I will man down until Kenneth Kaunda asks this nation's children to stand up. I won't need to man up. I am woman enough already. I have the weight of a rebellion on my shoulders. I have a brain heavy with dreams of freedom. I have national pride seeping through my pores. I believe in me and we, but who knew something so light could cost so much? And as much as I like to see the British dance, they do not need to know I am the one beating the drum, whistling the melody that their troops hear only in their nightmares, nightmares of a black ghost that always seems to get away. And in this cha-cha-cha of guns and gasoline, bullets and beatings, protests, prisons, strikes, and being struck, when black blood waters the flowers your grandmother picks for the table vase, when no one will address how all you have left of your grandfather is the red on the roses, when you have to pick the gravel out of your complacency or you will chip your teeth on it when you try to enjoy the meal, and only when the wind has blood and sweat to hit do you feel the cool breeze and you are bleeding often, black child, they make sure of it, only then do you hear it. Something in the pipeline, smoke on the skyline, something heading up north, flowing uphill, the whisper so loud, so proud, that is your ancestors' blood calling for freedom, African child. Regardless of the oppression, you and I, united for national independence, you and I, we will spill civil disobedience like water on a tableland to quench the thirst for political awareness. We will quench the thirsty ground. We will riot if it means that we are heard. We will set the past ablaze if it means we will get a brighter future. And do you see it? The bright future.
I've been walking with my face turned to the sun. Weight on my shoulders, a bullet in my gun. Oh, I got eyes in the back of my head, just in case I have to run. I do what I can when I can, while I can from my people. While the stars roll back and the stars feel the night, that's when I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home, far across the river. Can you hear freedom calling, calling me to answer? Gonna keep on keeping on. I can feel it in my bones. Early in the morning, before the sun begins to shine, we're gonna start moving towards the separating line. I'm wading through muddy waters. You know I gotta make up mind. And I don't mind if I lose any blood on my way to salvation. And I'll fight with the strength that I got until I die. So I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home, far across the river. Can you hear freedom calling, calling me to answer? Gonna keep on keeping on. And I know what's on the bed might be hard to face 'cause I am alone. And I just might fail, but Lord knows I tried. Just as we're up the sky. Stand up, take my
am a barren mother. I carry a freedom I never get to give birth to, a freedom I never get to see or hold or hear in the streets. I always planned to leave a legacy, and I know a legacy is planting a tree whose branches I may never get to see, but I did not think that I would die on this land and not get to taste the fruits born in liberation. But I will let my body be the roots to Zambia's emancipation. I will let my body be the roots to Zambia's emancipation, and even with my rioters supporting me and misinformation shielding me, I can't help but wonder if the end of this system is something I will ever get to see. I have dreamed of freedom. With my eyes wide open, I could see it in the flames of the British Empire. Gasoline in my hands, I let the fire in my eyes spark a revolution. I will never know how many bullets my body caught before it hit the ground. And you will never know how many battles I fought that your grandchildren could sleep safe and sound. But I let my body carry the seeds to Zambia's freedom. So even when my brother is pointing back at me jealously, with the firing squad armed and ready to fell a cornerstone of this country's liberation, I will let the seeds in me grow into a future I want my children to see, one that they can grow to be a part of. I will never know how many bullets my body caught. You will never know how many battles I fought, but I pray that you never take for granted the African sun, or how much blood was poured out to water the seeds of freedom, emancipation, and independence. The blood, sweat, and brilliance that fueled my determination for defiance. I fought for this nation. I died for your freedom. My blood watered the grass that you built future generations on. My body may have been the roots, but freedom was the tree, and I pray that its shade shelters future generations endlessly. And that when those future generations taste the freedom that I died to grow, they will remember that we have always deserved more, so much more. I was haunted by the future, hunted and gunned down, fighting for what we could be. Remember that my life and sacrifices bought your freedom, so guard it diligently. This future was planted in the bullets lodged in my chest. And when you lay me to rest, do not bury my dreams with me. Carry my dreams for a truly free country. Let no one be left behind. Remember the veterans, the warriors, the women of a kind. Honor our history, because it is the cornerstone and backbone of how truly great our nation could be.
Told me this would be easy, but I never knew that it could be this hard. All the worry is weighing on me. Could you help me break down all these question marks and make me fight like a soldier? Rise like a warrior, won't stop till the final day. Oh,
First things first. Don't make me cry. I'm your MC, okay? Don't be out here singing, sounding so good, I want to cry, okay? Let's just sort that out. Don't do that again, because it was really incredible. Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot of talent in this place. I'm looking around and I'm just wowed by how much talent is in this place. Our third and final queen tonight, Malina. There's no words to describe what she did and the woman that she is. But this here is her story.
Our third queen tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is Miss Malina. Now, Malina's parents were both active freedom fighters and planted in her the strong belief in public service and the fight for freedom. Now, between 1961 and 1963, Malina spent her days teaching and evenings helping with the mobilization, administration, feeding and accommodating the visiting freedom fighters such as Kenneth Kaunda, Lewis Changufu, and Andrew Sardanis. Now, between 1961 and 1963, Malina spent her days teaching and her evenings helping with the mobilization, administration, feeding, and accommodating the visiting freedom fighters such as Kenneth Kaunda, Lewis Changufu, and Andrew Sardanis. She even gave up her bicycle for mobilization activities, and at that time, a bicycle could be compared to a car. Kenneth Kaunda nominated her as Member of Parliament when Zambia gained its independence, and she was only 24 years old at the time. She was one of the first women to sit in the first session of the National Assembly of Zambia. Now, throughout her time in Parliament and in her political career, Malina was not afraid to voice her contempt for negative male attitudes towards women. Now, throughout her time in Parliament and in her political career, Malina was not afraid to voice her contempt for negative male attitudes towards women, gender discrimination, and to advocate for equal opportunities for men and women in education and jobs. Malina was soon appointed as the first secretary to the United Nations in charge of human rights and culture in 1967. Upon her return, she was appointed as the first female district governor under the Ministry of National Guidance in 1970. In 1971, she decided to go back to school and study law at the University of Zambia and was admitted to the bar in 1975. She later left for the UK, where she worked for the High Commission in the Immigration Department. In 1997, Malina worked for The Hague for a year for the Rwanda Genocide Tribunal, where she worked with a team which viewed letters from suspected genocide perpetrators and assessed who should be prosecuted. Malina celebrated her 80th birthday last year, and she's still approaching life with the same energy and enthusiasm she showed when she was a 19-year-old freedom fighter.
Welcome home. There is a song my mother used to sing. I don't know the meaning or if it has one, but it went something like this. Kankanyung kunyung kalala pamuela pamuela pa wasungo funke pompai. She would recite it before father would come home before candlelight. Upon the floor to this same song she would wager me, a child without the ability to pay attention, 100 kwacha if she could tickle me in the absence of my laughter. I would take the challenge and fail religiously. She taught me, be aware of your limits. Never overestimate yourself unless the prize and the price is too low. My father, on his way back home, leaves with the intention of returning if God will allow, and if God so much as opened that front door, he promised to shower me in the art of diplomacy and strategy. He said, when you open your ears, you are student. When you open your mouth, you become teacher. Balance these roles. Hold them tightly to your chest. Administer acres of anecdotes, acquiring ideologies of like minds, assessing for any animosity within your community, and then, amicably, accommodate any aggressive aims aside from what you deem unacceptable. And in a whisper, More to himself, he would say, form the water that falls from the sky. Fight for freedom in whatever space you occupy. Do you see it? The fruit in the tree now falling at your feet. I am the best and worst part of my familial tree. I am their legacy, Malina Kajila Chillala Makhubalo. I am the arrow that pierced and schooled those under my borders, the lady who balanced good and evil in the courts, the night sky that gave camp to the freedom fighters. I am the sacrificial lamb that gave my provisional needs for the wheels of change. So when I speak, you must listen. When I teach, you must watch. When I show, you must be willing to receive. You must search for the lost parts of our history. You must find me.
That I can, I know you're dying, 'cause you've had enough of my drama. I'm not lying when I say I care, when I say I'm here. You can count on me, yeah. It's confusing, I know I'm undecided, irritating, I know I'm trying to fight it, but please don't doubt I care, don't you doubt on me. Too much, too much, but I'm just working on me. I'm just working on me. Trust me, I'm just trying to run my race. Yeah, run my race. Trust me, I'm just trying to run my race. Run my race. Trust me, I'm just trying to run my race. Run my race. Trust me, I'm just trying to run my race. Run my race. It might take a while, then I won't let you down, let you down. Just give me some time, 'cause God is steady molding my mind, yeah. It might take a while, then I won't let you down, let you down. Just give me some time, 'cause God is steady molding my mind. My mind. Yeah, my mind. My mind. Trust me, I'm just trying to run my race. Run my race. Trust me, I'm just trying to run my race. Run my race. Trust me, I'm just trying to run my race. Thank you.
Do you think the beginning is ever remembered? Does success remember the seed that gave it life? Do you think only small rocks make boulders? Does the energy die once the fight is over? Does it change its likeness? Does it proclaim itself freely in the streets? Does it know who we are or what we've struggled so hard to achieve? Does it think broken vessels deserve a spot on the shelf or are created to be momentarily grieved? Do you think it travels countries and continents? Does it transcend languages and continents? Does it live to be 80 years and then some? Is it the culmination of core beliefs or that of a single one? Do you think the show is over, or has it only just begun?
Have you noticed? I need a shirt, so I'm just going to take this mic off. Another round of applause for beautiful ladies. So now, I'm just thinking, do we have experts in the house that can just give us a lowdown?
Freedom fighting and women in high places.
Do you think we do? Do you? I think we do. We're going to have a panel of discussion right now, and we'll be joined by Sheba, Vanessa, and Esna. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. All right then, ladies, please join me. Two, 1, 2. Okay, I think we're going to use this one. 2, 1, 2. Great. Please hold this. So, please introduce yourself to our lovely audience.
Thank you. My name is Vanessa Tisakula, and I'm a spoken word artist. And when I'm not performing on stage, I'm a coordinator for a social movement called Word Smash Poetry, where we promote the use of art for young people who are into activism. We're simply trying to push the agenda of civic participation on stage for governance issues all over the South African region.
Wow. I'm sorry I said wow, but that's a lot. Can we give her a round of applause, please? Milady over there, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Esna Labanda. I am a poet, a writer, a photographer, a media consultant. I work in marketing when I'm not on stage, and I'm a feminist.
She's a feminist. Did we hear that? Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, my name is Sheba. I am a poet. I am currently running an organization called Heart for Artists, where we do counseling and therapy, emotional and social therapy.
I feel like I just found my tribe because I'm a psychologist by profession, so I'm just like, woohoo! All right. So I think we should use this one because it's clear. Yes, please. So my first question and first things first is really just tell us your experience in leadership as women. Like, what has your experience been? The challenges that you've faced, the wins that you've had, but just generally, what's it been like to be a woman and be in a place of leadership or a place of authority? We'll start from here. Yeah?
Sitting next to you, okay.
Right.
Okay, so my experience ever since I started my journey, at least I got lucky and I met like-minded people. And that is how I fell into the work that I do now. So it so happened that I was surrounded by men, and I was the only female amongst them. They did identify as his and I as a she. And so when we started, and then everything started to move, from the people who were close to me, whenever I rose like a level higher, than I was before, somebody always came up to me and said, okay, it's because you're sleeping with that guy, or we see you surrounded by those guys, so we don't know what you do with those men. And in the beginning, it really used to get to me until I started to understand how, as society, we've been wired to respond to women whenever anything good or that we can look at as good is happening to them, or whenever they're making any progress, even the smallest one. And you will find that you're making the same strides as men, and you're achieving the same level of success, but you will be judged differently. And so I noticed that a lot of stones were thrown, and people who were saying these things were people who were close to me. They called themselves my friends, and they would come and tell me in my face, like, okay, it's just because you know that guy. Nobody looked at my talent, no one looked at my hard work. All they could look at was my association. For a minute, I felt, okay, maybe they're right. But after I sat down, I introspected, and I realized that what they were saying was a lie. And what they were saying was birthed from certain narratives that were considered normal because of how we have been socialized since we're young and until we grow up. That is when I just started to put everything aside. And I can tell you that right now, I'm so unapologetic about anything that I achieve. I owe anything that I achieve to me and the people that surround me, either male or female. And I will not even listen to any person who's going to tell me it's because I'm associated to any man. That's it.
To not being apologetic about who you are and what you can achieve. Another round of applause.
Yes.
Thank you. So tell us, what's it been like?
Honestly, it's been interesting. I think I'll start first as a poet because I do so many things. But in the poetry circles, I don't think I have met as much resistance as compared to maybe working in corporate or whatnot, because there you have a lot more issues of competency coming up and issues of people seeing you as being abrasive or harsh when all you're doing is being assertive and saying, I'm not going to stand for X, Y, Z. So yeah, and when it comes to, for example, my feminist journey, over the last 4 years, I've been using my poetry to talk about sexual reproductive health, talk about sexual assault, talk about GBV, and just basically lending my voice. You know, I think first it started with dealing with my own healing and my own process and everything else that I have been through, and being like, you know what, if I can talk about it, maybe I can relate better to the next person and they can relate and we can heal together as a community. And so I think in terms of resistance to that, I mean, sure, there's always people that are like, oh, you're just bitter, oh, you just need a man. No, I need myself and I need to heal myself. I can't, like, hurt people, you understand? And so when it comes to issues of you moving forward in life, if you don't deal with whatever issues that you have going on, if you don't drop your baggage, you're not going to move forward, you know? And just to bring it back, our pastor once taught a sermon on boulders and handbags and talked about how everybody has their own handbag. I can't come and carry your handbag. It's got your personal effects in there. But we have boulders that as a society we can help each other with, you know? And so that's where we need to lend our voices. That's where we need to kind of carve out a space for us. So what I've been doing for the past few years is basically carving out a space for who I want to be as a person, how I want to be recognized, and just, you know, embracing myself. I think it's taken quite some time to love who I am and love my talents as they are, because for a long time I've been like feeling like I am too much. You know, you meet people and they're like, they want to put you in a box, and they're just like, yeah, I can't fit, hey? I cannot fit in your box,
in a
guys.
box.
I can't. And so, yeah, I think that's been mostly what the journey has been like. There's been quite a bit of pushback, but also it's about standing firm in what you believe in and who you are. Like, once you've decided that this is me, you know, obviously you leave room for improvement and change, but there's certain fundamental issues that you know are never gonna change about you. Yeah.
Amen to that.
For me, I think the experience of being a woman, if we're going to look at in terms of what the pressure has been, I think when I started out as a hip-hop artist, there was this space where I was the only female most of the time. Most of the time I was the only girl, tomboy, big jeans, t-shirts and stuff. And the men who surrounded me, the boys, now they're men, and 20 years ago, they really protected me. Really, those that were close to me, those that I called, oh, we're in the same group. We had a group called Third World Order, where there was Black Moon to Shmaster. So those were my closest friends, and they were the first people to protect me if anything happened. And their pride and confidence in me built me up, because wherever they'll go, they say, we've got a female, we've got Queen Sheba. And that built me up a lot. On the other end of the spectrum, the boys who I did not play with would say, she slept with all of them. There's no way. No, every time you'd win a competition, it wasn't enough that you were talented. No, it's because you slept with the judges, because you slept with all the boys. There's a complete disbelief that you did not sleep with all these boys that you hung out with. So I just wanted to point that out, that there have been moments where it was the men that picked me up and pushed me. Every single time they said, Sheba is here, she's going to perform, she's going to do that held me up. Then the other experience, I think, as I grew older, I got married and had kids. When I was working, I remember one job opportunity I had where I quit because I was under pressure. I had small babies, and I was coming from a tomboy background. It took time for me to smooth into motherhood. So every single time my son or my daughter had a temperature, I had to rush back home. Genuinely. And then a comment was made to say that, every time the baby is sick, these women, and
that's my baby, okay?
And I was working, my son was born, I was writing exams. I wrote my exam, had my baby. A week later, writing exams. My daughter, 2 weeks, I'm back at the office. So it's like they were too small, and they have all these problems. So there was that in my journey.
Wow.
And then now, 10 years later after the kids, I think one of the things that I experienced as a woman maybe is that there's this, there are certain spaces where you go, if you say, I'm Miss so-and-so, you will not get as much respect as when you'd say I'm Mrs. somebody. So there are times when I just insist, my name is Sheba. I don't want to put that Mrs. to get the respect that I think I ought. I think I should just be respected as a human being, not because I'm married to somebody else.
That is beautiful. Just listening to all your stories makes me think about the challenges I've faced in my own journey, and being a psychologist by profession, but loving the arts and media has been quite, sometimes you'd find, because I work in TV, I'm a production manager at a TV station, and I'm telling my story anyway. So I'm a production manager in TV, and for the longest it's been hard to get the recognition of the capabilities that I possess, because everybody's like, she's a girl. Can she really lift that? Can she really do sound? Sound is for guys. We had this conversation in one of the groups today, and one of our the head of sound was telling me about teaching me more stuff about sound. And the response I got in the group was, that's for guys, one of us could mess it up. And it was from fellow women, you know what I mean? So I think overall what I'm getting from all your stories is just to accept who you are, and to accept the fact that you can be talented and you can do anything you put your mind to. You will face resistance, but either way, it works out eventually, it pans out, because everything works out eventually as it should. So at this point, I'm going to throw it to the audience. If you have any questions about women in leadership in high places. Any questions? All right. Let us give a round of applause to these beautiful ladies for coming through. At this point, we're going to hear from the man himself, the CEO and founder of Color Culture, Musenga.
Good evening, everybody. Okay, these lights are so bright there. Okay. I hope you've had a good time and that you've learned a whole lot from this particular evening. Because first things first, what we do here as Color Culture is basically to tell stories about amazing things that have happened in our history. So one thing that I really, really appreciate and feel isn't as appreciated as much is the role that women have played in our history. And tonight we focused on Namwezi Mwamba, we talked about Lenshina, and we talked about Malina Makhubalo. You know, these are different people who, I'm sure most of us have heard of Lenshina. I think she may have been the most popular of all the people that we've spoken about. But then to know that there was an 18-year-old who fought for our freedom and actually died at that particular age, and we don't really celebrate her as much as we should. It's quite heartbreaking if you think about it. So I feel that it's always important for us to take opportunities to always just remember how we got where we are and who was responsible for everything that we have and know today. So I didn't have much to say. All I wanted to say is that I'm really grateful that each and every one of you came through. And to each and every poet and each and every singer, you did amazing, and I'm really grateful and really happy to be working with each and every one of you. So thank you for coming, and have a good night.
Tiny backstory to the first time I met him. I was just amazed. I was like, who's this young chap who's this brilliant? I'm sorry, but you know what I mean? I looked at him and I was like, okay, there's brains. You know, like God was doing the things when he was making Musenga because he's so brilliant. At this point in time, we're going to hear from a representative from the Women's Museum. A round of applause, please.
This is great, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sambayonga. I'm the co-founder of the Women's History Museum alongside Mulenga Kapwepwe. I'm sure you know who that is. And you might recognize my voice from the Leading Ladies series. I mean, I'm just here to do a very simple job, to give great gratitude to all of you for such powerful, powerful performances. And you might think this is really small, but when I tell you, when we'd sit with Mulenga, having coffee, talking about these stories of women that were hidden in the dusty archives of the Zambian National Archives, we would talk about how it could impact the young people that we know, how it would impact and transform how we think about ourselves. And when we did the little experiment of Leading Ladies, we didn't expect anything to come out of it. But when we started seeing comments like, if I was a woman and I knew this information from when I was young, I would think of myself as a woman in a different way. And men would say things like, if I learned this in school, I would look at women in a different way. We started understanding the impact of transformation of stories such as these. We've been told that our history has no women's leadership, no impactful women's leadership. We've been told we're not innovative, but these stories prove that. But the most important thing for me is seeing how it's impacting young people such as yourself. To watch and witness the stories that you've told through your own personal experiences. Daily we are moved and touched, and we thank you. Special thanks to Musenga, who would chase us down, even when we'd ignore his calls because we're busy. He would chase us all the way until we said yes, to Color Culture. Thank you for illustrating the stories. Thank you for taking them further. And a special thanks as well to Alliance Francaise for sponsoring this whole event. I think this is the beginning of more to come, and we really want to encourage you to be a part of it. So we're always open, even if you have to chase us down, But please, please come and talk to us. Share your stories. Tell us how it's transforming you. Once again, thank you for an amazing job, and we look forward to more. Congratulations, everybody.
At this point, we're going to have some closing remarks from the representative of Alliance Française. A round of applause, please.
I would like to thank you. I was very, very happy to discover such talent. You are amazing. Women, you are really amazing. Thank you. And it's true. I think it's the beginning of a long story between Alliance Française and you, artists. The message that you delivered was really important for me as a feminist. That means that the future of the women is in a good way, and I would like to congratulate you for this. It's not the Women's Day, it's the Women's Rights Day. It's completely different. That means that women fight for their right, and they fight to exist and to be there, to stand up. You did it for us, and I would like again to thank you. Have a good Women's Rights Day.
I'm a little sad. Come to the end of the show. But one thing that I encourage us to take as we come to the end of the show is, let us be the difference that we want to see, as women and as men. We have learned a lot tonight, and let this knowledge continue to inspire the generations that we create, the generations that we bless with our knowledge. Let us be the difference we want to see. Have a lovely evening. Good evening.